Does it matter where MPs sit when they're in the House of Commons? It matters an awful lot to the Labour MP for Bolsover, Dennis Skinner. His usual front row seats on what's become known as the Rebels bench. They're the seats that are usually occupied by Labour's so-called awkward squad. But Mr Skinner has a fight on his hands to sit in his traditional spot. It seems that now they have 56 MPs, the Scottish National Party want a front bench of their own. And the front bench they want is the one on which Mr Skinner sits. The seating situation seems to be affecting the 83-year-old. He couldn't manage his traditional heckle during the Queen's speech ceremony yesterday. He told the Mirror, "I've got bigger fish to fry than uttering something." And that's because he's fighting the Scots Nats over his seat. And it's not just the seating arrangements that are causing parliamentary problems. The SNP's Westminster leader Angus Robertson was talking yesterday in this Queen's speech debate. His colleagues gave what many would see as an over-enthusiastic response.
It's an honour to reply to the Queen's speech on behalf of the third party in the House of Commons, the Scottish National Party. It is our intention to be the effective opposition to this government.
Well, that ripple of applause caused the Speaker, John Bercow, to rebuke the new Scottish MPs. Clapping was not permitted in the chamber, he said.
The convention that we don't clap in this chamber is very, very, very long established and widely respected. And it would be appreciated if members would show some respect for that convention.
Here are some hears. Now, those hears were in response to the Prime Minister when he spoke in the Queen's speech debate yesterday. So why does it matter so much where MPs sit? And who cares if there's a little bit of mild applause in the House of Commons anyway? Isn't that much better and more natural than the hears we're so very used to? Well, let's kick off with Dennis Skinner. Hello, Dennis. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Why is it so important to you that you get to sit in the same old seat for all these years?
Well, it's not important. The Scot Nats decided to vacate their usual place, which was on the third bench. And quite frankly, I think that was a better position for the leader of the Scot Nats. That's where he used to deliver his speeches from before they increased their numbers, and it made a lot of sense for them to be on the second and third benches. And by and large, that's where most of them are now. So I'm still in the same place, and they are in the place where I thought it would be most suitable.
But how hard is it for you these days to secure your favoured seat? I believe you're having to rise at dawn to make sure
I've always done that.
That no usurper sits in the seat.
I've always put the cards in to book my place, and I've been doing it for 30-odd years. That's not new.
They say, of course, that they're now...
I turn up to Parliament every morning.
Well, they say they're the third party now, the third largest party.
There's no doubt about that. They are the third largest, yeah.
And they'd quite like...
They've got the same number as the Lib Dems had last time.
They'd like a bench of their own without you sitting in it.
Well, they've got two benches. I mean, let's be fair. There are only just over 300 seats in the House of Commons.
Yeah.
There are 650 members. Therefore, you can't get... there are about 16 people can get on a bench. So if two benches will only get you 32 people. But it means that there's literally 250 to 300 MPs who don't get a seat when the House is full.
What would it mean to you if you got squeezed off your favourite bench and out of your favourite seat?
Well, it's happened several times. But each time, because I'm always there every day, I get it back.
But why do you mind?
That's what you should understand. I turn up for work every day, and some of these people are part-timers.
I see that, but I could also see you might want to sit in a different seat and view the chamber from a different perspective.
I've sat in a different seat many times.
Yes.
I mean, the idea that somehow or other it's been that corner seat is not exactly true. All I'm saying is that I didn't want to change my place, and neither should the Scot Nats. And incredibly, although the papers and the media generally are not reporting it, yesterday, when it was the opening of Parliament, and most of the Scottish National members of Parliament were in, they were actually on the benches that I expected them to be on several weeks ago.
I believe there was an issue some years ago
So
now.
why aren't you reporting that?
Well, we're going to speak to them in a minute, but I believe there was an issue some years ago with David Owen over your favourite seat.
Yes, well, he wanted to sit in front of David Steele. They were joining forces, the Lib Dems and the SDP, and he wanted my seat, and he got somebody from the party officers to put his prayer card in. He was breaking the rules, and it was exposed, not by me, but by other people.
What did you feel when the Scots Nats burst into applause yesterday? John Burko didn't seem to like it.
I don't care about anything like that. Never have done.
You're pretty happy with that, are you? I'm just going to bring Mike...
I don't bother about it.
OK, I'm going to bring Mikw Weir in. He's the Scottish National Party's chief whip in Westminster. Mike, hello.
Hello, Vanessa.
So you know, Dennis says he's fairly easygoing about it, but he rises at 6 and puts in his prayer card to reserve his seat. Are you trying to shove him out of his favourite seat?
No, we're not. And I've made perfectly clear that we have no intention of moving Dennis. Dennis is quite welcome to continue to sit in that seat. None of my MPs will try and take that seat from him. I've made that perfectly clear. We've been trying to negotiate a compromise with the Labour Party, but all along I've said Dennis is welcome. He's a fixture in that seat. We're not trying to move him.
So what do you want to do seat-wise? What are your seating plans?
Well, I mean, traditionally, the third party in the Commons sit on that front bench and the ones behind it. That was where the Liberals sat before they crossed the floor to join the government in the last Parliament. We consider that is the traditional third party seats. We want to have part of the front bench. We're not looking for it all. We've been trying to compromise and negotiate on that, and the two benches behind us. And as Dennis rightly pointed out, the main problem here is the Commons is simply not large enough to hold all the MPs, and to be perfectly clear, unless you're sitting on a bench within it, you cannot take part in the debates in the Commons. So it's important that we have benches. We consider that our members can contribute to debates and questions within the Commons.
And so what have you decided? What's the solution to this dilemma?
Well, at the moment, there is still not a solution, but we have had, I suppose, a de facto solution on the ground, is that we've been sharing the front bench with Dennis and some of his colleagues, and we have been in the two benches behind it. I think that works quite well. I hope we can come to a permanent solution along that basis.
It doesn't sound, though, as if there is a permanent solution, because there's no such thing as a permanent seat for anyone, is there?
Well, there isn't. And well, in the rules of the Commons, you can sit anywhere apart from the government and the opposition front benches.
Yes.
So there is absolutely no seating plans. It is up to MPs to sort out amongst themselves. And in days when the Commons is busy, Prime Minister's Questions, a classic example, there are simply not enough and nearly enough seats for all those who want to be in. But, you know, I think we can come to a reasonable compromise on the ground. I hope we will do so.
Let me just bring Dennis back in. Dennis Skinner, do you think a reasonable compromise on seating can be reached?
Oh, without a doubt, it's always happened. And yesterday it seemed to be satisfactory, and today I went in and I was in my seat again. Of course, the media and the Tory leader of the House, he said that I was being deprived of my seat, but I've known for several days that the matter has been satisfactorily resolved. It's a problem at the end of the day about a party that suddenly increases from about 5 to 56 and needs more room, in the knowledge that there's 650 MPs, and even with the best will in the world, you can't find seats for more than 350.
And Dennis, you don't feel like saying, well, I'll move for a few more rows back. I'll let these Scots Nats take over the whole of that front bench. They want to.
It doesn't really matter where I sit. As I said, the point is that the media don't understand, or don't care to understand, is there 650 MPs, and realistically, there's only 350 seats.
Let me bring Mikw Weir back into the discussion. You just used the phrase to me, Mike. You said the rules of Westminster, and it was quite clear that Speaker Burko didn't like it much when you Scots Nats burst into applause, which is, as he quite emphatically said, not the custom and not the done thing in the House of Commons. Are you going to do that again?
Well, I mean, the problem with the House of Commons happens is there are no cast iron rules as such. It's all conventions. And the Speaker made his ruling. We obviously accept the rulings of the Speaker, though I would note that clapping in the Commons is not unknown. You may remember that when Tony Blair resigned as Prime Minister, there was a standing ovation from the Labour and Conservative benches, though not from the SNP benches, I would add. And there has been other occasions where speakers who've made a particularly good speech have been applauded. It doesn't happen a lot, so it has happened in the past. But obviously the Speaker rules in the Commons. We are not going to get into a war with the Speaker over clapping or anything like that. So we will get by on it.
I mean, have you been practising saying hear, hear? Because I hear that hear, hear isn't a commonly uttered refrain in the Scottish Parliament.
It is not uttered at all in the Scottish Parliament. And I mean, that's part of the problem. If you listen to on the radio to Parliament, it sounds dreadful when you hear a load of braying members going hear, hear. I don't see that clapping is any worse than that, for example. But as I say, we accept the ruling of the Speaker on these matters.
So you haven't arrived. I mean, some newspapers reported that you Scots Nats arrived and began draping yourselves all over the equipment, taking selfies, that kind of thing. Oh. You haven't arrived with the intention of lowering the tone or being deliberately mutinous about things.
Not at all. I mean, we are here to take part in Parliament. We're here to represent our constituents. We took 50% of the vote in Scotland and the majority of seats. We're here to put Scotland's voice in Westminster. Now, we had a referendum on independence. We didn't get the result that we wished, so we are still part of the UK, and we will make Scotland's voice heard. That's what we're doing. We're here to make it work for Scotland. We have a very different point of view from the government and indeed from many in the official opposition. We will put that view and we will argue for the things that we believe in and we think are best for Scotland.
And you'll forgive me if I don't respond hear, hear to that, I'm sure. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Dennis Skinner, aka the Beast of Bolsover, and Mikw Weir, the Scottish National Party's Chief Whip in Westminster. Does it matter where Dennis sits? Does it matter if the Scots Nats applaud instead of saying hear, hear? Your take on that, 0500 288 291.